You can also be professional. Yes, there are limitations when you are hosting. So Oscar Ssemujju is a bit late, but he will be joining shortly. We have a number of topics, including the abduction of Dr. Kizza Besigye, the pardon, sentencing, and later the pardon of 19 NUP supporters. Are they all supporters or some are leaders?
Supporters, really.
Supporters.
That level, yeah.
And we'll start with that as Oscar joins us. Let us understand the issues surrounding the arrest, the court-martialing, continuing court-martialing of civilians in military court, people pleading to offenses they did not commit, as they have said, and then they are sentenced to 3 months, and later on they are pardoned. So just bring us to speed. How many have been released? How many are remaining? What were the charges? And as a party, what are you going to be doing to rehabilitate people who have been in prison for more than 3 years?
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Ssemujju. Very glad that you're hosting us today.
When I leave politics, I'll be back in the media.
So, first of all, we are very glad that some of these people who have been detained for such a long time, 3 years and 8 months, really close to 4 years. 19 of them were released yesterday from detention. Many of these people were picked up around May 2021. Others were picked up before. A person like Olivia Altaya was initially picked up from Kalangala, arrested.
The day the Honorable Chagwany went to campaign in Kalangala.
Yes. Yeah. So that was at the end of 2020, actually. And she spent over a month in detention, and then after being released by the court-martial on bail, she was again picked up with this group. So in total, this particular file, so NUP still has about 100 political prisoners on different charges, different prisons now, different courts. But this particular group of people, the 32, are unique in the sense that, first of all, they are picked up from different places and then, lumped up together on these charges. Of course, when they were initially picked up, I wouldn't even want to say that they were arrested. They were actually abducted. These people were abducted because the manner in which they were picked up was most unfortunate. Some were picked up from Bale, others from Jinja, others from, different places, subjected to torture, grave torture, by crime intelligence, CMI, and other, security agencies. They were given an offer to go and meet Hon Ssemujju, and these 32 refused. You remember there was a group called Chikankane which came up later on to say they were working with NUP. So there was a group which accepted to meet Hon Ssemujju. They were taken for training by ISO and all that. And then they came up and said they were no longer NUP. But these particular 32, and why we really look at them as heroes, is because they rejected all these offers. And they said, we are not going to betray our party. We are members of NUP. We will not go into those shady things. And so that's how they ended up, before the military court. Initially, they were charged with unlawful possession of ammunition. 2 years later, given another charge of treachery. And, 4 bail applications, which all were rejected over very flimsy reasons. At some point, that military court claimed that these people did not have places of abode, that, I don't know why and yet many of them were picked from their homes. But the court said that these people did not have where they were staying before. Another time they said that their sureties, who included their parents and some members of parliament, were not substantial sureties. So that has been the fate of these people. Thankfully, they were now released, but like Olivia Altaya was saying yesterday, for all the time when they've been under detention, the state has been approaching them and telling them that if you want to get out of detention, you must plead guilty. You must plead guilty or rot in jail. That has been what the state has been saying to them. Plead guilty or stay in jail forever. So that is why these people, the 19 of them decided to plead guilty. 4 of them had been released on bail much earlier. So we have 9 people now who who are still in detention at Chitalia.
Those are the ones who have not pleaded guilty.
Those are the ones who have not pleaded guilty.
Yes.
Yeah.
So good morning, everyone. Good morning, listeners. Apologies for my late coming. There's a bit of traffic, but the weather today is Capital Gang weather. Most welcome, Honorable Abdu Katuntu. Safe from your travels. This time you are in only one country doing work.
Yes. Good morning, Oscar, and good morning, listeners.
Good morning, Honorable Lydia Wanyoto Mutende. Most welcome to Gang.
Thank you, Oscar. Good morning to you, to the listeners, and to my colleagues in the gang.
Okay. The young, old journalist, Derek Wandera, good morning to you.
Good morning, Oscar. Glad to be here.
Yes. And, of course, Council, NUP, stalwart, Mr. Rubongoya. Most welcome to Gang. Honorable Ssemujju, thanks for standing in. So, 3 lawyers in the studio. We've talked about this, Honorable Katuntu. These people who have been released, 19 have been released. I was saving this question for you. Now, with the conviction, if there's a pardon, do you still keep the conviction, or is the conviction erased?
No, the pardon is about the sentence. It's not
the pardon is about the sentence.
Yeah, but the conviction remains. So I think anybody who pleads guilty hoping to get a pardon should have that in mind. That yes, I'll be free, but the record of you being a convicted criminal is permanent.
Yeah.
You can't be now.
The convict.
That's what it is. So you still remain a criminal, but you've been pardoned by what we call prerogative of mercy of the president, because that's what the Constitution provides. This particular case is quite interesting because when the Honorable Balam took over as Minister for Youth, he sort of laid out an elaborate process of what is going to happen. And indeed it happened by what he had come out and said publicly. So it seemed to be more of a political process, because we knew there would be a conviction, and we knew there would be a pardon, and it would be freed, which sometimes is, if it is a normal court process, you can't predict some of those things, because one, until we would have called it in criminal, we call it plea bargain. When it's going to happen like this and so on. So it could be normal, but this particular one was a little bit abnormal. And given the nature of the charges that were brought, secondly, these people were arrested, I think, in 2001. Yeah. And 21. And it had taken 3 or 4 years now.
Close to 4 years.
Close to 4 years. Really, just delayed is just denied. And we didn't see any progress of that case, that maybe witness had started coming and so on. So it was always remand. So it would lead to frustrations, and people must make a choice whether you stay there indefinitely, as Uruguay says, or you go back and see your family
have some kind of a life
of freedom and so on. So you are presented with what the economists call opportunity cost. You have to forego this and get this. So for freedom, you have to be baptized. You're a criminal. You're a convict. But then you have freedom and you can see your family, because they couldn't see, in my view, light at the end of the tunnel, the way the process was going. And they were, I think, faced with what you call a fait accompli. No other option. Obviously, you have others who will say, well, I'll go all the way. Let us see if there will be evidence brought against those who have said, no, you prove that we are guilty. Anybody, Oscar, will tell you, if you've taken me to court, please prosecute me. You can't take me to court and then I start pleading. please, can you prosecute me? For years. It doesn't make legal or even common sense. Please, can you prosecute me? Bring evidence against me. Said, well, we will. And then months after months, for years, you are on remand. So that's the situation, in my own view, they were faced with.
Yeah.
And they had choices to make. You either plead guilty and get freedom, or you stay in, and you don't know when you ever get out.
Lydia, you are another lawyer in the studio. You've argued before that this is not a legal case; it is a political case, and that's why Balaam was able to enter it.
That's my opinion, and it has not changed. So, but I'm happy that they are out, and to their families, the process of healing and counseling starts. Maybe this can also, as we go to heightened political activities, this is a good conversation to see how we are going to run through the next 12 months after 1st of January 2026. I mean, there are so many players into a general election, and at the end of the day, we have to see how people should not be caught on the wrong side of either of the law or the politics in the pursuit of trying to run to achieve a particular goal. That's all I can say. But the last time we were here, the process of them appearing in court and the following incidents of the 3 months serving sentence was just ongoing. But finally they are out. I think it's a very good feeling when you're walking out of a prison, but also at the same time very emotional, because these are people, they are young. These are people who are not, I don't think any of them has made 40. So maybe, first of all, some of these institutions are correctional centers, or they are for you to also learn how to survive in particular environments. I think losing 2 years,
four years,
losing over 2 years out of productive life, it's a big loss in my humble opinion.
Which affects it.
So that's what I can say.
You know, when they pleaded guilty, I remember Dr. Kiza Besigye one time said, I don't want bail, and a judge said, no, you want bail, take it.
So, yeah, you see, people like Dr. Besigye, let me say
I was framing the question.
They are more resilient.
Yes, when they pleaded guilty, could the judge have said, no? The one they were
the
faced.
judge, no. Let me also say no. The discretion of the judge in many cases, they are given leverage. But I wanted to say that pleading guilty to the charges has huge implications post your freedom.
Yeah.
Because if you are like a Katuntu, who is like now maybe also in transit to another destination, every time you are applying for a visa, they will ask, you have to fill the form which says, do you have any criminal record? Have you been? So you have limited now your life. You may never be able to access travel. Okay, people say, it's not important to go out of Uganda, my friend. That's a lie.
You ask those people on sanctions.
So that's one. Number two, for the record of the country, for the record, Uganda, we do not value records so much. Even our archives, I don't know how good we value them. We have laws around archives. Do we enforce them? Do we enforce them? Because some countries or some cultures, for you people of culture, strong culture like Uganda, archiving and history is so important about personalities and lineage and things. If your family had somebody with a record of criminality,
ever been to jail,
you know what it means. You can even be isolated, not to marry from that clan. Say, that clan, there was somebody who was a thief or somebody who was a murderer, and there's a record in court. Yeah. So it has bigger implications. But maybe for the immediate need, somebody needed their freedom. But it's also your right to plead guilty because it's a court process. So that's all I can say. Yeah.
Honorable Ssemujju, what happens now to those who did not plead guilty?
I thought Ssemujju was the moderator this time.
There was
about
a
3
peaceful
minutes.
transition.
Transition.
Yes.
It's a very difficult question, and you don't know how long they will hang on, especially when your other colleagues have moved out. In fact, I think all of them should plead guilty because they have committed no crime. And then the Lugongoyas, who are lawyers and leaders, can now begin challenging this criminality of the state when people are outside. Because the lawyers will advise, but I think it is still possible to challenge this conviction. My knowledge of the court-martial is that you have that general court-martial, then they are supposed to have a court-martial appeal.
Yes.
Which I have never seen sitting. Maybe it's not even constituted. And from there, Abdu again will advise, you were supposed to go to the High Court. But at one time they said that general court-martial is at a level of High Court. Therefore, when we convict you here, you cannot appeal to High Court. But in the past, it was known that when you are in the general court-martial, including the appeal court, that when those processes are completed, you now can go to the normal court. But they have made it sure that you actually don't go because they are holding on to you. It's not that because the general court-martial, and especially the political prisoners, I don't think that Major General Mugabe sitting in Machindi is the one who is just a figure there. I think the legal issues are handled by Chiwanuka Chiriowa, and then the decision, the judgment is by Museveni. So he says this one convict, this one release, then Chiwanuka will put it in the legal language, then that judge will come and read. So the decisions there are not taken by the soldiers seated there. They are taken by Museveni, and then his legal team will process them. So I have a lot of sympathy for all of them, but particularly these ones who have remained. Because you get broken, your colleagues have gone out, but you've committed no crime. So you keep asking yourself, the inner self, because some of these people have never even held a gun. At least me, I told the people who had been fooled that to go to the university you had to do mchaka. So I went to do mchaka because we were told you will not access a university if you didn't do it. But subsequently, you're told it's not a requirement. So some of these young people have not even done mchaka. We were in court-martial, and Ajo Bed said, I have never been even a scout. So how do you bring me to a military court? But they are now pleading, yes, we are found in possession of fire, ammunition, and then they free you, and then Museveni will follow by pardoning you. So the intention of Museveni is like someone quoting a woman. I hope I'm not offending women running from Semakades. When you say quoting, these days they also quote. Quoting a woman, she refuses, then you rape her. This is what Museveni has done. So you want to quote people who are in prison, they have refused, so you are hanging on to them. Because my understanding is that some of them, after the sentencing, after being released, they are hanging on to them, they are holding on to them, they are taking them for training in Changwanzi. So they must become NRM by force. So this is political rape by Museveni. Oscar, I don't know what is troubling you.
They, as a moderator, I must caution you on use of language. I don't want you to become Mr. Semakade's brother in use of language.
No, I am very careful with the words that I use. So this is political rape. That you are quoting people, they have refused. You are now using court-martial, and you are saying, so you will become NRM, you like it or not. That's the only way you survive.
Jerry Kwandera, escaping from Ssemujju's microphone. These people who have stayed, how many are they? Are they 9?
Yes,
Yeah,
9.
9 of them.
Do they now, the prisoners say, do they tell them, you guys, you refuse to go, now you are here?
Maybe just to give quick information.
Yes.
The mother of one of them called me this morning asking me, now what do we do? Because these ones are now out. Do we advise them to also plead guilty? after 4 years. So that's a conversation that is now happening, even with the 9 who are still there. But when we went there, they clearly told us they don't want to plead guilty for offences they did not commit.
But if I plead guilty now, back to you, Derek. If I plead guilty and the offer expired.
No, it's
was for the 19.
No,
it's for everyone. The offer was for everyone.
And in
met
fact,
all of them.
As far as just a week ago, the state has been still pushing them.
Yeah.
In fact, they reached a point of telling these 19 that in order for you to get the things we promised you, the houses, the money and all that, you must convince the 9 to also plead guilty.
I think it's going to be an easier process for the state to have the 9 get to plead guilty, because then I think one of the things that
but the question to you is the offer still there?
Absolutely, because the offer was to the 32, and if you have 9, yes, if you have 9 who are still in there, you certainly know that the power brokers or the deal brokers will then go to the 9 and tell them, you see, your friends are now out. Why should you be the only ones remaining in court? But there's something I wanted to speak about in light with having 3 lawyers in this room, and I want to hear from them what it means to certainly the eroding judicial system of this country, that such a case of treachery, very high level case, is brought and given to people, slapped on 2 people, and there is no legal process at all whatsoever.
Which one? I don't know.
The 32.
Only charged against soldiers in the EPDF Act.
That's also only under the EPDF Act.
You get.
And of course, there have been processes in these ordinary courts which have not yielded.
So you are looking at lawyers in this room and trying to help the people, the public, to try to understand what this whole thing means, what kind of judicial systems we have in this country, and if there is any word to say brokenness of institutions in the country, wouldn't this be the perfect and vivid example of the same?
You journalists, they are broken.
It is not news, but probably people might want to have it even more re-emphasized. The families of these people and some of these people who were arrested, like Olivia Lutaya, was the first time of her arrest. I was also arrested in Kalangala with her. Yes, while I was covering the trail of the Honorable Chagulanyi, and when I came out, many of these families, the families of many of these people, reached out to me to just write their stories, just to understand where they were, because they were held in Communicado for a very long time at that time. And to a time where you've been held in Communicado, and then the transitioning of things to the extent of being asked, please plead guilty, it tells a lot about what a political case and a political situation that we are. And I don't know why, of all institutions, court has been hijacked to play a political role, or to hide a political case into their institution. And I expect the seniors to be on their feet to try to challenge this as much as it can. But Oscar, the challenge from where we sit as journalists is trying to separate those two very murky situations. That Lydia says this is not a legal matter, and she has said this several times. And from where we sit as journalists, we are supposed to report it as a judicial or a legal matter, and yet you see a lot of politics intertwined into it. So whether the 9 are going to remain on their feet and say we are not pleading guilty, then it's going to help us journalists to drive that into a legal matter, because then there should be, if they refuse to plead guilty, a legal process take place, producing them in court and having them.
But Abdul was saying they are the ones begging, please come prosecute us.
That should be it. But you know that the state is also reaching out to them, telling them, please plead guilty. So if they refuse, then what happens? Then we expect that a legal process.
You say the state. Who is the state?
The state.
Museveni is urgent.
Ssemujju quickly says Museveni.
The state is Museveni.
But he has not been to jail to see them. So who goes to them and
pardoned
says,
them?
Usually he's the one who can pardon. But
when you see the state, you have seen a
Who is the
minister
Okay.
coming out to say, Minister Balaam
Right.
coming out saying that I thank President Museveni for giving these people pardon and for understanding me from where I'm coming from, and I am going to make sure that even the rest who have remained get the same pardon. It means he has a hand into it and is part of the state as a minister. So it goes without saying, this is the state.
Luis wanted to add something.
Yeah, but in fact, even before Balaam came in, operatives have been approaching these people, and whereas Uganda prisons has fairly been, according to many people with the problems we have with institutions, many people think that prisons are a bit professional, but we've been concerned that these people will tell you that some operatives come in at night and they are allowed to meet them on a weekend. Even Balaam met them on a Saturday when it's not a normal visitation day. Of course, sometimes we've been blocked from accessing them. So one of the tricks they used, they were even forced to change their lawyers, to drop our lawyers, because we provided them lawyers who have been helping them all these years, who have been representing them. But one of the conditions was that you must first of all drop your lawyers and be taken over by the lawyers of the military. So these military lawyers have been going there to tell them that, if you want to get out of prison, you must plead guilty. And if you don't do that, you'll rot in jail. And of course, like I said, they've been promising them all sorts of things. At some point, they were even telling them to implicate our leader. That was the initial deal. That, you need to come out, say that you are taken for training by Honorable Chagulanyi in these particular places. So you can see that even in pleading guilty to very serious crimes, the question is, they may want to link that to either the party leadership or something like that. So, and I also wanted to correct Honorable Lydia Onyeto here that some of these people are actually old. There's a 66-year-old man among these people who are even released. So it's not true that they are only young people. Of course, the younger ones are the majority. But these were picked randomly from different places. They had never met each other, majority of them. Some were picked, like I said, from Mbale, from Jinja, from Wakiso, from different places, and clumped together. And it is clear that there was no evidence against them whatsoever, and that is why they were pushing for this plea of guilt. Our reading is that, first of all, the state has been looking for any way out. Having jailed them for all this time, they've been trying to figure out how to release these people so that they don't even go and, sue us for malicious prosecution and all that.
Can the court just dismiss the case?
Yeah, but if they did that, you can take them on malicious prosecution. If there hasn't been any evidence, any iota of evidence whatsoever against you. So, but also, if you were to look at other similar cases or scenarios, like the Kasese issue, where all these people were taken to court and eventually forced to sign amnesty papers in order for them to get out. The issue of ICC and these international mechanisms we're trying to use, we think that might also be a factor. That because all these political prisoners signed affidavits which we took to the ICC, so maybe the state thinks that if people of this nature plead guilty, then
the case is closed.
That helps their case if the ICC eventually decides to open up an investigation. Yeah.
But Oscar, for me, what is also troubling is that it appears in contacting the victims, I don't want to call them prisoners, because of the nature of prison, they may not even have understood what the state was driving, because you saw them crying when they were sentenced for 3 months. I think they had understood that the moment you say, I am guilty,
you're going to walk out.
You're going to walk out. And cases in court martials, many of them never end. I think the ones of Besigye have never ended. Tinyefuza was tried there recently, Kaihura. I think Kaihura later on they said now they have dropped charges. I thought they were going to subject them to the same process, that you make them confess and then you drop the charges and they go away.
Provided that you can't confess, then they drop.
Yeah, but if you're not following the law, if it is politics, you can't. Because the plea of guilty did not have to happen in a court. It should have happened outside where the talking was happening, and then in the court you're appearing for dropping of the charges.
No, but public consumption had to be that they have agreed to it.
Yeah. Anyway, and now your leader, Honorable Ssemujju, was also arraigned at the court martial, and the charges are that he was in possession of 2 firearms and 8 bullets in another country.
Yeah, it's not the first time, first of all, for Besigye to appear before that court on the same charges.
Of firearm?
Yes.
Oh.
He has been appearing there. I went by the way to visit Besigye, and he looked unbothered, because I think his home and Ruzira are the same. So you outside, you are bothered. Even when he was walking from Uganda Road, where he had been asked to pay 30 million for bail, he said, I'm not going to pay this money and you should not raise it. And then he went. So it's trouble. He said, what do we do? He said, don't raise the money. He said, we must challenge this criminality. And he did by going to the High Court. I have read, including the New Vision, surprisingly, yesterday, quoting the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Foreign Affairs in Kenya, saying that the security forces of Kenya and the government were not involved in Besigye's abduction. Chris Wariomunsi, my friend, who speaks for the government in Uganda, he said, and I believe him, that there is an arrangement between Kenya and Uganda. And he said it's not possible to walk into another country and bring a person. There is an arrangement. What I thought, and I think what everybody thinks, is that there is now a working relationship between Mr. Museveni and Ruto, because Ruto has become vulnerable, obviously, because Kenya is not Uganda. Institutions of the state in Kenya are not as privatized as they are in Uganda. That sometimes when you need them to help you, even if you are president, they may not. Because otherwise, Uhuru Kenyatta, who wanted Raila Odinga declared the winner, the Electoral Commission refused. In Uganda, they wouldn't. So I think because of the nature of the Kenyan state and politics, Ruto comes to Uganda to borrow. So if you want some Kanyamas to beat people, the Kenyan military may not do it your way. And I think Museveni has been interfering in Kenya by sending intelligence, by sending military to aid Ruto. At one time he was just hanging on. He may have sent more troops just in case they were about to overthrow him. So the working relationship may not be with the whole Kenyan state, but it's an arrangement between Ruto and Museveni. So you can walk in, because Dr. Besigye told me when they are driving them from Nairobi to Maraba, they kept making stopovers, maybe communicating.
Who was driving them? Uganda,
people who abducted them pretended that they were Kenyans.
Right.
Ajidutale told me, along the way, one of them picked a phone and said, Kandi, said, I realized that these guys are ours. And he said when they crossed over to Uganda.
And it could have been in Rumasa.
No, I am still telling you this. They left the Kenyan vehicle with the Kenyan.
Because these are now yours.
Yours are bad. The Chisum 36 told us that the Kenyans were very good people. But the ones speaking Runyankore and Uganda are the ones who were beating us. The Kenyans were just looking on. So along they left the vehicle with the Kenyan registered number plate on the other side of the border. But it is the same people who put them in another vehicle with the Ugandan number plate and then drove them to Machindi. So they were abducted by...
No passport control, nothing.
But Besigye left his passport at the hotel.
Right.
Everything. He put his luggage, went for a meeting. So his passport has just been retrieved by a family, but he had left everything there. They didn't even go through immigration, neither on the Kenyan side or the Ugandan side. The same way they brought the Kisumu people. So I think the abduction that Uganda is doing is similar to what Rwanda was doing here, that eventually caused Kayihura problems and got Uganda to explain, because the UN was complaining. Because Rwanda would walk in here, pick a person, they wreck and go away. So, but partly because us and Rwanda are more or less the same. The president of Rwanda was a deputy director of military intelligence. That time, General Muntu was the director, and Kagame and Kayanja and Kanobogere were his deputies. So we are the same people. So it is easier to walk to old. Rwanda was the best man of Kagame. So they can walk here until they begin quarreling. So that is the relationship I think now Museveni is building with the Ruto, that I can also walk into Kenya, pick a person, the same way our other neighbors can walk into Uganda and pick you. So that's how Besigye is brought, charged in the same court, with same offenses, and then sent to Ruzira. But we didn't know, because we had been told on Monday he was supposed to be part of a meeting at Katonga. One of us told us that I've been told Dr. Besigye has been arrested by another person. And he said, no, it's not possible. That they arrested Besigye and they were holding on to him from Saturday evening, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, until Wednesday, then took him to the court martial. But as usual, these processes there, it's just a theater. So Museveni will be the one to determine that now Besigye can get out. Chiwanuka, you go and make a legal document. If he wants you there, you will stay there.
So where was he? Where was he being held? It's so very, because
he was in Machindi. Oh. From Maraba, they drove him straight to Machindi military police.
Okay.
Yeah.
Louis Bongoya, you went to visit the Dr. Besigye, and did he narrate the same story?
Yes, absolutely. We went yesterday with our leader, the Honorable Chagulanyi, and the leader of the opposition, and we checked on him. Thankfully, we found him very, very strong. As always, he's someone we look up to, and his fortitude is something really everybody should admire. For me, one of the biggest problems, and I think it relates to both conversations, the first one and this one, is one of the biggest villains in this whole issue is Unyidolo, who should be the Chief Justice of this country. And I must really say that you cannot be a Chief Justice who presides over this level of injustice. The Constitutional Court has held twice that the military courts are not courts in the right sense of the word. They are not courts of judicature. The Constitutional Court has clearly said that civilians should not be held or tried by military courts. But Unyidolo has decided not to, deliver a judgment in this matter, to put it to an end. So he's the Supreme Court of this country, which should be really the pinnacle of justice, is the one which is permitting all these things. And I'm not saying that the regime will not even ignore that decision of the Supreme Court if it is out there. But let it be out and let the regime violate it, continue to violate it with impunity. So how Dr. Besigye, who is clearly retired from the military, ends up before a military court is something you need to ask yourself about. And even the nature of charges against him. They say that he was found with 2 pistols in Nairobi. Should that be an offense triable by the military court in Uganda? Kenya has its laws on holding arms and all that.
Isn't Uganda law, excuse me, that if you have firearms, you end up in the military court?
Yeah, but I'm saying that even if for arguments...
Extraterritorial.
That's not extraterritorial. The point is that if you are found with guns in Kenya, it should be the Kenyan state to prosecute you if it's an offense in that country. Because as you know, there are countries which actually allow people to hold guns, under a certain license and that kind of thing. So the point is that even the nature of charges they are so ambiguous. No single court, and I think that's why General Museveni prefers these kinds of things to be done in the military court, because he knows that no sane civil court would entertain such a charge sheet, which is clearly defective. You say that people were found with guns in Kenya. So if he had guns, for argument's sake, how did he go through immigration with them, and how do they become Ugandan guns? So the whole thing does not make sense, legal or in any other case. But I think this is evidence of the ongoing persecution and repression. Clearly, the use of the court-martial, not to prosecute, but to persecute political opponents. Yeah,
Derek, we've known Dr. Kizza Besigye to be a very careful person in terms of he's repeatedly said he would never end up fighting General Museveni. So is it possible that he changed his mind? Is it possible he's careless?
Reports have been given to the media. We've written stories ever since the story broke about the arrest and, of course, abduction of Dr. Kizza Besigye. Many of the sources that we are talking to do not point anywhere to guns, at least those that have been close to him, those that are within the state of Kenya and those from here. Our sources do not point anywhere to the guns. Of course, the guns is a narrative that's coming from the military court and of course, the other entities of government.
Ssemujju says they are waiting for him to attend a meeting on Monday.
Yes, if at all our reports had been wrong, the state on either side should have protested them, the media reports. But for what we are seeing as it is, we have interviewed sources who say there was nothing like firearms or even intentions of Dr. Kizza Besigye to recruit or stage military meetings. In fact, what we know was he was supposed to attend a book launch, in which I think Martha Karua was one of the authors. Or Martha Karua is an opposition leader in Kenya, and that's what that's the match we know. Yes, the running mate of Raila Odinga in Kenya, and that's the match that we know, and everything that and the people we've interviewed point to that fact, and we've not seen that fact being protested. So, if you asked me if Dr. Kizza Besigye has changed his mind, then it would be very hard for me to say yes, he has changed, because at least Dr. Kizza Besigye has not said anything like that. Neither have our sources close within the intelligence of Kenya and the intelligence of Uganda pointed to that. So it's a very hard, but also digging from history, it is very likely that these are forged cases and charges. We've seen that when the Honorable Chagulanyi was arrested in Arua, 2 guns and several bullets were arraigned in court, but that case has gained a lot of dust in the Gulu court as of now. It has never taken on. So it's also possible that probably this should be the same script that the government is using on Kizza Besigye, probably to just try to cut his speed.
There was also a group of Kalangala people.
The Kalangala people, of course, who had one bullet, and they kept exchanging it from yes, and it had been picked from one person's house, by the way, 15 days after their arrest, and it kept exchanging hands. The same with these ones who have just been pardoned. The first charges that were slapped onto them. So it would be very, very a big foolhardy for us to say that Dr. Kizza Besigye has changed goalposts on the way of engaging President Museveni politically.
Honorable Katuntu, after this with the topic we discussed before, the 19 released, and now Dr. Besigye, the state is showing they can just come and pick you up willy-nilly, and that's it.
Well, it is, but okay, let's speak law first.
Yeah.
Under international law, there are two known ways where a national of another country living in a different country can be repatriated. The first one is called deportation. Deportation entails that the national in another country has violated the laws of the host country, or he has infringed on his immigration status. The complainant in that case is the host country. We hosted you, but somehow you are committing a crime. Therefore, under the Internal Affairs or the Ministry of Immigration, they deport you
back to your country.
To your country. The deportation process, you know, first of all, you are baptized what we call a personam non grata. You are no longer wanted in our country. And even in your passport, they stamp in it. Say, look here, you are not welcome. And they get you and hand you over to your mother country. It is a process. The Dr. Besigye case doesn't seem to be that, because from the press reports, actually it's not the permanent secretary. You know, the Kenya ministers are called the cabinet secretary. It is the minister himself who was saying, no, we are not aware about this. We are not even aware he was here. So it wasn't a deportation. Secondly, you can also be extradited. Extradition, what does it mean? Your home country requests for you. It requests the other country to hand you over to answer crimes you could have committed in your home country. But doing that, it is a proper legal process. One, you must go through a court system. And then there must be a treaty between both countries. Like we had the case of Mukulu, I think, Jamil Mukulu, when he was arrested in Tanzania. He had to be taken before a magistrate, said, look at this gentleman, he has been living in our country, but he's wanted in Uganda, having committed this sort of cases. And the court gives that extradition order. It's by a court of law. That does not seem to have been the case with Besigye. The third one, maybe the Honorable Nyoto can assist us. I don't know more about it. This one, which does not fall under the two.
In any of the two.
It is me to know those ones.
Oscar.
It was tongue in the cheek. So that one, I have no knowledge how it happens. But let me tell you, if we are now to talk politics of it, we have caused a very, very nasty conversation in Kenya, this particular case. And I am telling you, abduction is going to be one of the issues, electoral issues in Kenya. I don't know when politicians take some of this decision. They realize they live by day. Yes. Okay, maybe. So you have this problem, but I've always told you on this show that these are unintended consequences. Now in Kenya, there is a very, very huge debate about the abduction.
Maybe I wanted to give just some little information.
So you know more about it.
This is not the only case. This is not the only case, by the way. The 36, Dr. Kizza Besigye, and about a couple of months ago, two thugs were also abducted, quote unquote, in the similar manner from Kenya and taken back to Turkey. So it is, like you're saying, a very, very nasty conversation that's happening there.
It is, and let me tell you, in the early 80s, Kenya had the same problem with Uganda again. When the late Honorable Balakiria was abducted, I think, by... Yes, I have to say, unfortunately, by the Dobote regime. But it caused many of the exiles at that time to leave Kenya, and that included the army of Rugunda, included my friend Dionova Mama Mbabas, actually including the first family, because Janet Museveni at that time, she was a Lusodware. They were in exile in Kenya, because Kenya had become an unsafe place. Yet, with all the problems we've had, Kenya has been there for us. If people go there, you know, and they welcome us until we sort out our mess. And so now we moved full circle. We are back to those sort of situations. It's very unfortunate, though.
Lydia.
On the other option.
Yes. No, please. I never.
You are going to say this is political.
No, because also it's the matter. It's also it's under a court process. Whether we say the court process is disputed or not, but it's an unfolding story. It is an unfolding story. First of all, you remember they were saying he's not seen, he's not. Then he appeared. So that blackout was also a bit worrying. Personally, I got worried because Besigye is a public figure. If he had disappeared for a week, I don't know what would have happened to us, because the airwaves were beginning to shake. Now we are happy to hear that he's actually in good spirit, but also alive and is able to. That tones down the anxiety of somebody has disappeared. Now we know he's there, he's alive, and he's in some process.
Somehow his wife had known.
Now we need to know.
She was the one who first tweeted that he's in a military detention.
It's because you assume that she's very far from the other options.
Yeah.
That's your problem. She could even be more knowledgeable about the other options than some of us. That's the reality, you people. So they will tussle it out. If when Besigye has issues, I am less worried for him to resolve these issues when he is involved with people like Winnie Byanyima than the group that was
the 19 and the
19. I am more worried about the 19, and I'm sorry that I'm giving that opinion on radio, but that's honest me. I know that Besigye and Winnie Byanyima, they can fight their way out of some of those things, and you know, but for the 18-19, I normally feel sorry even for their families, their history. These guys have built muscle, they've built clout, they are making their big statements. I mean, they can engage, they can fight their way out, they can get into a net and get out of it. But my issue is this 19, if you ask me, because that's where my heart goes.
Yeah. Let's stop for a quick break, and then we shall
the other options,
continue the conversation.
Those two guys actually.
We'll come back from the break. This is the Capital Gang. We are deep into our second topic, the arrest of Dr. Kizza Besigye. So, presumably, you're going to construct a defense for Dr. Besigye. Well, in any court. And presumably, you're going to conduct, maybe they wanted as an investigation on how he was kidnapped, and then also another investigation on why they couldn't arrest him, I should say normally, in inverted commas, because you can arrest someone at Entebbe Airport.
First of all, in the earlier cases, Besigye did not defend himself before the General Court Martial. And even the court martial did not progress the cases to hearing. They were there, you produce him, he goes here, and so on and so forth. You remember in 2005, even the normal courts had difficulties in handling the Besigye cases. That's how Justice Ogora goes to Rizal, tell him, please allow house arrest. We have negotiated with Museveni, and he has accepted house arrest. And Besigye said, no, I am not accepting. I want to remain here. So I want to get out to normally. So you can't give me... so eventually they had to process him normally. So he gets released, the military raids court, scatters judges. So the cases of Besigye are not cases that they will try. I think the only case they have tried was the one of rape. because it had a political value for them. Because at that time he had been charged with numerous cases, including rape, but they only prosecuted the one of rape and left the others. So I don't see...
It's also funny because I was involved in that case. One, he refused to give evidence. Yeah, of course, which he said, now, you see for what they have brought is evidence against him. And just Katus gave that very indicting judgment. You need to read it. He didn't go to it. It never went to that level.
Yeah,
just
because
whatever you said, please.
I mean, the advantage with the Besigye is that he has a very strong heart. I don't think Besigye will participate in negotiating that you guys, I am here, you come, we talk, I get out. Even if you want to keep him for 2 years, he will stay there. And then you will deal with the fallout of his arrest and detention. So, Oscar, don't expect a Besigye defense. I don't know whether this time he will even apply for bail, because in the past he has refused. And then between Museveni and Ruto, they will know how to sort out their mess. But for me, I've been asking myself, since this happened, why is Museveni bothered by Besigye going to Kenya? I've been asking myself. And then I've gone back to when Ruto wins. First, you remember, Oscar, when Ruto is announced a winner, the following month, Museveni's son begins tweeting. First, he says my senior brother should have served the third term, meaning Uhuru Kenyatta. And he said he would even win. But he said, you see, in Kenya, constitution, rule of law, he said for us it is the revolution. Those things don't work here. Constitution, rule of law, in that tweet. But subsequently, the National Unity Platform, the Kenyan Human Rights Commission, had a Human Rights Accountability Conference, a Ugandan Human Rights Accountability Conference in Nairobi, hosted by the Kenyan High Commission. Then, of course, Besigye has kept going there. Museveni, in his mind, going back to the history when he had just captured power, he will be worried of a relationship by the opposition with any neighboring country. He will be worried. And I think that's what is bothering him. I have told the story many times of when Museveni was living in Entebbe Airport. There were people to say bye to him. And at that time, I have mentioned the three. Kazini is dead. Taban Chabihandi Kano is dead. The only remaining one was Stephen Kashaka. And then told them to keep the revolution. You see, as Muhoozi said, Muhoozi is a very good student of his father. Museveni will never speak about power. He told these military officers that to keep the revolution, to safeguard the revolution, you need to do three things. And one of them, which is of interest, is that we must make friends with neighbors. And he mentioned Tanzania, and then he went to South Africa, and so on and so forth. So Museveni will be bothered that the opposition, and in Kenya, what is opposition today, tomorrow is government. So he can't allow you to go and build a relationship where you even begin speaking at the launch of their books, you are in meetings with them. And I think those are the pistols that Besigye had. Because the man went to speak at the launch of Martha Karua's book. But knowing Museveni, he can't accept that you have friends across the border. Either he wants to send a message that even if you have them, I will find you there. Like Rwanda has been finding them, including in South Africa. So that's where we are. I am happy that the whole world has followed this story. I don't know whether it will now restrain Ruto or they will find another way. Because you arrest Besigye from Entebbe, as you usually do. Arrest him, and the Besigye, I can tell you, Oscar, that Besigye was on his way back coming to Uganda. Besigye is not a Ssemujju for me. If you are threatening me, I will not come back. But Besigye will come back, I can assure you. And Museveni knows it. that heart that drove them to go to Luwero, he hasn't lost it. Me, I will not, but him, he will.
Okay. Derek, there's a social media audio going around. In which it is said, it alleges Dr. Besigye was negotiating for arms. Has it been verified by you people in the media? Is it AI? Pardon?
You see, when Besigye was in exile, he was hosted by Andrew Mwenda from South Africa. And in KFM, there was Nobo Mayombo, chief of military intelligence. And Mayombo was saying, you are negotiating arms with Israel, with what? Remember the show that Purkol stormed. So they always say that, not that they are saying something new.
So yeah, this audio has been making rounds with the AI that is in place right now. You can only be very careful treating to either qualify it or disqualify it. But what I know is it's been there for some time now. We have been examining it. People have disqualified it on different platforms and different media houses. I do not want to put my hand on it, but what I know is it has been circulating across. Someone from South Africa just sent it when I'm on this show right now, and they were asking me how correct is it, and I said the same, that we've been receiving many of those. But what is very interesting is for the fact that I think it's something we talked off air, that the Kenyan authorities come out and deny knowledge of Dr. Kizza Besigye in Kenya, and then he is transported from Kenya across the border, from the immigration of Kenya and immigration of Uganda without a passport. It's very
embarrassing. It's
embarrassing and it breaks banks of logic. If Kenya can come out to say we do not know anything about this, it is something that needs to be investigated. And like Honorable Katuntu put it, it's a very nasty conversation. You know, I share nationality with Uganda and Kenya, and I know in some of our groups how it has raised a lot of dust on either end, giving background to that conference that happened in Kenya, I think in 2022, which I covered for the Daily Monitor. And now things turning around to be this way, because the council Lewis is going to Kenya. They were saying that they are not very sure of their safety in Uganda, so they were very sure of safety in Kenya, and so they went, and indeed they were safe. But now I don't know whether Council Bongoya, you're organizing any other conference of that in that manner after something like this has happened.
Yes, Louis Bongoya, are you organizing another conference?
I mean,
now you know.
Even traveling to Kenya now, you have to think twice, because certainly Kenya has become very unsafe. And for me, really, one of the reflections I've been doing is how it is very, very hard to build a democratic state, and how easy it is to destroy it. Because at least in the region, with all the problems in many countries, you would think that Kenya has been a beacon for the rule of law, for constitutionalism, democracy and all that. But you can see how very, very quickly it's deteriorating. Yeah. So I think...
Is there any political gain for anyone in this abduction and arrests?
Absolutely not. I don't even know how these people think, because you see, the charge sheet makes it clear that allegedly these people were found with these guns at Riverside Apartments in Nairobi, Kenya. So the Ugandan state is confirming that these people, we picked them from Kenya. The Kenyan government is saying we did not know, we were not aware, we were not notified, and it was embarrassing and ridiculous to see the cabinet secretary in Kenya saying that opposition leaders at the level of Dr. Besigye should notify them when they are coming in. I mean, Kenya is a neighboring country. We always go there every other day, for meetings, to do whatever. So you cannot say that every time we go there, we should But also to speak to the point
I
that
think that's protocol. That one is protocol. At a certain level, you need to notify for actually to provide actually things like a security and so.
But you know, once you go through their immigration,
you see, if you are so no. Let me tell you, once you are a leader at that level, you don't sneak just in any country like that. You say, well, I am here. Sometimes there are courtesies which are extended to you, and also further responsibilities. Because if you move in and anything happens to you, then government is
like it has happened.
Now government is in trouble.
But
it has to explain only that this time it happened from what we've read with some knowledge of some Kenyan government functionaries.
Exactly, that's what I was saying. That actually Dr. Besigye told us
it is normal.
Clearly that the Ugandan operatives were working with Kenyan operatives. So I mean, whether you notify them or not, you can see that the Kenyan, maybe the Kenyan institutions at different levels were aware of what was going on. Maybe not at the highest level, we're here to establish that. But I also wanted to remind you that recently Hon Ssemujju was talking about Babu Owino, who supports us, who is a very good friend to our president, and he was saying, he's always getting intelligence about...
He's a member of parliament for Embakasi.
Yeah, he's a member of parliament for Embakasi East.
Where the international airport, where you all land is.
Yeah. so I think Hon Ssemujju increasingly is paranoid about what is happening in Kenya, because he said, I'm always getting intelligence about what Babu Owino is saying and that kind of thing. So... to really speak about this point of paranoia by the regime
but
here.
Just going back a little bit, so who signs a charge sheet for the court martial?
That's
military court.
The military
DPP.
No. The military court has its prosecutors and the chairman of that court martial, which is not a court of law in the right sense of the word.
A service.
These are service offenses which should be tried in that court. That is why it should be like a disciplinary tribunal.
It is.
Only for the military, not for civilians. So if you see that charge sheet, it is signed by now I think Major General Freeman Mugabe, and then the prosecutor in the military court itself. Yeah, the officer preferring charges, and then the chairman of the GCM. Those are the ones who signed this charge sheet, which is clearly defective. Yeah.
The senior one here, Abdul. So should we call this a court martial or a military court or a military tribunal, or do they all mean the same thing?
No, they could mean the same thing, but the Constitutional Court has already described it what it is.
Yeah.
It is a tribunal, disciplinary tribunal for service members, and who use their position, including the equipment they have, which is very dangerous equipment, to commit offenses, because they are supposed to be a disciplined force. However, they are in a very unique position because, one, they hold very dangerous weapons, and they can easily misuse those weapons and so on, including the position they hold in society. So they have a disciplinary tribunal, which is now what we call a court martial. Ordinarily, it should be about them. It should be about them.
The police tribunal.
Yes, it should be about them.
It's about police.
To drag civilians in that court, and I don't want to put it the same way Mr. Rubongoya has put it, but I think the Supreme Court owes this country a duty and actually an explanation. This has been a very contentious issue, and the Supreme Court is not a trial court. No, it's supposed just to lay just guidance to the entire judicial system, decisions. So this matter has been so contentious. There are many civilians who have been in the court martial, and they go there protesting. The Constitutional Court has already held that it is wrong, and the Supreme Court has not made a decision for 3 years. I think. Sorry?
Last parliament.
Yeah.
So Kawaziguruka went there.
Yes, that's
when we were in the last parliament. It's now more than 5 years.
Yeah. So really, they owe us a responsibility, because we will not be having this debate. They would have sorted it out. We said, look, yes, the court martial has power to try civilians, then you can imagine how many civilians will end up in Machidi or wherever it is. Or it doesn't, because you see, even under our civil courts, cases of unlawful possession of what? Firearms are there.
Yeah.
And they are there under the penal code. For us who are what? Civilians.
Under the Firearms Act.
Under the Firearms Act. So why would anybody take that sort of person to the General Court Martial? And let me tell you one thing. The EPDF Act says civilians who are caught in possession of weapons that are ordinarily a preserve of the EPDF. Can anybody tell me, is a pistol a preserve of the UPDF?
They license them here. Police license.
No, it's police who licenses them. The pistols are with the prisons. The pistols are with the civilians. The pistols are with the wildlife authority.
With the MPs.
With them. You know, how can you call that a preserve of the UPDF?
I see them depositing.
You see, I don't know. The lawyers.
You see, these are people who are holding people just for having a beret, and then UP beret.
You see, if somebody was caught or arrested with an artillery piece, you have been arrested with an artillery piece or a hand grenade. Those are the things I would imagine I preserve
have said they found him with the tank.
Defense forces. But pistols.
Was an ambassador who drew a gun somewhere in Eastern Uganda?
In Nirango, he's a cultural leader. He went to a meeting with his pistol and he was disarmed.
Yeah, because they are not even licensed by the UPDF.
Yeah, they're actually licensed by the police.
They are licensed by the police
and the ministry.
But really, it's clear why why the regime prefers using military courts. You know, Hon Ssemujju, for example, has been every day talking about bail. He really does not like this word called bail. He wants to be the one to determine when someone is arrested, when someone is detained, when someone is left to go. So, for example, in the aftermath of the 2021 election, even before, over 1,000 of our supporters were taken into military courts, somewhere in the unity disciplinary committees, which the law does not even allow. The statutory instrument says that civilians should be tried by division court-martial or general court-martial. But our people were being tried by unity disciplinary committees, the division court-martial at Kachiri and other places, everywhere in this country, Makenke, other places. People in thousands, and if you read the list that JJ Odong provided in Parliament at the time, you'll see all these people who, just by being found with a T-shirt of Honorable Chagulanyi at the time, could land you in the military court. And those people would go there, they tell you to put on a beret, they take your picture and use that as a basis to charge you before these courts. But why were they doing that? Because they know that if it is a civil court, you can easily go, apply for bail, get released the following day, and in their wisdom, go back to the streets and cause trouble. Because they just wanted to keep these people away up to a time. And you see, after the election, they started releasing these people around, after Hon Ssemujju swore himself in, around June, July, they started releasing these people. So they were trying to use that court to make sure that these people are held until the state decides that now it is okay for you to go out there.
Lydia, you know Ugandans have humor.
To, first of all,
the humor is, I don't know if you've seen a drawing where Uganda has expanded and now our neighboring country is Somalia. And there's a district Sudan called and Somalia.
Well, all those are now those now are members of the East African community.
But you see,
let me finish.
Let me give. I was still reading, so I'm giving you context. Greens Kansime, regular listener, says the abduction of Dr. Kano Besigye from Nairobi and transferred to Kampala without the knowledge of Kenya security agencies, as they claim, it is true testimony that our security agencies are highly advanced and sophisticated in clandestine assessments.
You see, I have actually two issues to contribute.
We're able to take over Kenya in 2 weeks.
The first one is the given story of why we are in this African community. It's about erasing borders and making it more possible to have free movement of people, goods and services, so that it is seamless. That's one. So when you talk about Somalia is even now a member of the South African community, so we should be able to cross the borders.
So the Besigye now come as a movement of people,
now
movement of goods. Free movement, you can imagine.
People, goods and services.
Yeah, so
when we are
deep, the category of Besigye, whether he came under free movement of people or free movement of goods.
Now that is what the law talks about, the treaty that establishes the South African community in the spirit and the letter of the treaty. That's what it says. But I wanted to comment about what the cabinet secretary
of Kenya said. Ideally, now let's talk about the ideal. We have the ideal, but there's also the reality. Ideally, when we are traveling and you're high profile by the protocols and the order of presidents of our country, our embassies and high commissions should be the ones to know that Idi Onyoto Mutende is coming to Nairobi for this week to do this and that. If I am reached that level, but also even at the airports, there are those that go through the VIP lounge and then others will go through the normal whatever procedures. Unfortunately, we've not been able to do that in terms of our foreign protocol, but also our foreign policy. That's one. But on the other side, many of our embassies, even if they get to know or even if they don't know, they don't, because of the either mindset or inertia or resource availability, they're not very welcoming to people that go to their countries, especially
opposition.
So you would expect the ambassador or the chancellor to go and wait for the honorable
foreign diplomacy at that level. I'm talking about the rankings and procedure in terms of protocol. If the High Commission or the embassy in Uganda has knowledge about that high-profile person, you don't have to go there, but at least you know, and then alert the office to which you report. For example, if I'm the Uganda's High Commissioner to Kenya, I would inform the cabinet secretary responsible in Nairobi that I have the high-profile list of Ugandans. I'm telling you the ideal. Please listen, because it's important for us to pick lessons. We cannot keep lamenting all the time. When you are in government, God forbid, 2026, you should be able to draw a code of precedence and say these opposition leaders who are formerly NRM, please receive them when they are coming on informed, so that they know that they are here for a week or so. So that when you are arriving, you're on the manifest. Nobody should lie you that people don't know how we travel. On the manifests is highly situated. All manifests know their departures and arrivals. If you think they don't know, you are lying yourself. They know every manifest that is loading people in and out of any country is on the radar. But I think they are saying they don't know because there was no formal,
especially when you have a leader
there was
of
no
opposition.
formal communication. But that helps, because it's a lesson to learn. That helps because then some of the questions you're asking now would be putting to task the embassy, the Uganda High Commissioner in Kenya. How could you knew that Besigye was in Nairobi to attend the launch of Martha Karua's book? Where did he disappear for 2 days? But now we are meandering in Kenya, Uganda, because we are talking like we don't know how governments operate. Governments operate through their missions. Uganda and the High Commissioner to Kenya is one of our strategic, by the way, our strategic missions in Uganda as a foreign policy. Kenya is one of those. I think I'm just trying to relate to what I'm trying to make a comment about what the cabinet secretary was saying, and I want to make her to know that ideally that's what we should be doing in terms of how we relate to who is the high-profile Ugandan. In Uganda, we all believe that Dr. Besigye maybe is a political leader, but is that in our laws and policy, so that we hold to account the Kenyan High Commissioner in Uganda.
Uganda High Commissioner. These guys yesterday they were walking to Kenya High Commission here making demands, and I was like, well, what's our foreign policy like? Because you must quote, leave alone the international laws that we all know about, but there must be this policy relation that we all know.
I'm fine.
You can fire your questions.
You see,
do you think
I've explained to you the ideal.
A Uganda ambassador. Do you think a Uganda ambassador would host Chagulanyi at the embassy in Kenya?
That's
he will
exactly
be
what I
fired
wanted to
in
speak
the
to.
following
you.
day.
Fired.
Say.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. That
I am telling you the idea,
The
and I'm
idea.
saying
and
because we have these gaps, that's
Yeah.
why we are now here, full of lamentation. But these are the areas we are supposed to be correcting.
so the embassy should then not be partisan, because you see, if you have an ambassador like the one who was in Canada on the streets protesting against NUP, you know, and you know what they do everywhere.
How will you sign up?
How will you say that? Actually, if you notify them, they are the ones who will hand you over to bad elements in the first place. So these are the challenges we must confront. I think.
You see, you're reminding me a story.
That is the
I remember
idea.
Mbabazi goes to the US. I think his friends organized for him transport from the airport. And then I think the following day or later, Chiwanuka Sekandi, the vice president, also goes to the US and is transported by the embassy in the ambassador's car. The complaint was that because they are now blaming the ambassador then. How comes Mbabazi had 3 vehicles to bring him from the airport, and the whole vice president, you take only one? You are the one who organized. So at that time, by the way, I didn't even lift NRM. So even their own people, the moment you fall out with them. But the point Lydia makes is a very valid point, that we should be moving the country to where she's saying.
Yes.
But when you are in a state we are in, when your opposition is like you are a criminal,
Yeah.
before you ask Kenya to treat you humanly, Uganda, where you live, you are being treated as a criminal. Your movements are restricted. People in the state must take turns in harassing you, because that's how they get promoted in the military and police. Then the ambassador will never receive you. You won't even be bothered whether you've come or not. But specifically the person of Besigye, in FDC before all these problems, Besigye's he was the secretary mobilization Rukunjiri. That was his rank, below all of us. We went to watch football in Nambole one time, Uganda playing Zambia. He went and prayed for Kirasha and sat there. Kawesi went and retrieved him. He said, "You don't belong here." He said, "But my ticket reads here, so why are you taking me?" He said, "We'll take you, will not sit here." He said, "Please, I paid to sit here." Then they had to bring police. I didn't want to cause commotion, so they brought him to the VIP. So basically, Alex,
No more.
he likes living that sort of life. I remember when Kategaya died, because both Museveni and Besigye attended the burial. So there's SFC who are manning the metal detector. When they saw Besigye walking, they said, "You remove it, you can go with it. Don't allow him to go through the metal detector." So some 2 SFC went and stood in the middle of the metal detector. Yet every other person, they are almost all the historicals, the NRM people who fought in the war, they all made to go through it. But for Besigye, when he arrived, they said, "Don't allow him, you can walk away with it, you stand there." So his relationship with the state,
has been
a
a struggle. Just final question to you before we stop for a break. What I asked Louis Rubongo, is there any political benefit for anyone in this abduction and arrest?
Yes.
Okay, maybe we somebody who says yes, but I don't see any.
From violence.
One, maybe even before I say that, you see what my sister Lydia is talking about. If Dr. Besigye was in Nairobi and somehow he was mugged by some ordinary criminal, then Lydia's explanation would make sense.
Abducted.
Abducted by some criminal gang in Kenya, and the Kenyan government would be asked to explain what happened. But the sort of comment the cabinet secretary was making was just to avoid, because this thing has been an international embarrassment to the Kenyan regime. So it's like we don't know. That's
Without a statement.
They are trying to deny responsibility and so on. Two, it is also true that if you are going, you're a government official like us, we hold different passports and so on. We are supposed really to avail ourselves and report formally through.
But Abdu, can I ask?
Yes, please.
Because you see, at a parliamentary level, when we are applying for visa, we always get a diplomatic note indicating where you are going. So that is the responsibility of Foreign Affairs stopping at issuing a diplomatic note. I thought the thing that Lydia is saying, they will be the ones saying we have asked for. Actually, they are the ones applying a visa for you.
That is true, but they don't.
And
they
I'm
don't.
saying that should
and
be
for
the
us,
ideal.
because I also hold another passport.
For you have 4 passports: the diplomatic, the official.
No, I have
the
a
East African, the African Union.
So, and we are taken through in induction once you hold that passport. Just don't go to the country and you just sneak in and so on. You have to report and they know that you are there and so on. And sometimes for what purpose? However, that is not the issue. The issue is there was some state actors within the Kenyan administration and state actors within the Uganda administration that carried out this embarrassment. And we are now, I was expecting my brother to be here, try explain it. And I don't know why, Oscar, you didn't invite Jane Okolaije, the army spokesperson. I think
the press conference you called, he cancelled it.
Oh,
Okolaije.
He cancelled his own press conference.
Yes, but because you see, we would be having a proper conversation if he was on this show and try to explain it. Because at the end of the day, we now know that's the army that did it. But as somebody who was a prosecutor, let me tell you, I'm just waiting to see the evidence being brought in this case. And the witnesses. And really, it's something which... no ordinary prosecutor would wish to handle.
Let's stop for a break. This is the Capital Gang. Welcome back from the break. And now we go to banging the tables.
Who wants to bang the table?
Maybe Lydia wants to bang the table. So, this Louis Rubongoya.
Semakade was our guest.
He sent a representative.
No, he was there. He was our guest.
Oh, he was your guest.
The pronouncements were made in the company of Hon Ssemujju.
Okay. No. I must start with Rubongoya. And the reason I start with Rubongoya is
He's a lawyer.
No, he's a teacher. He's teaching students law.
This is what he taught.
No. I think you should.
Let me get a producer take photograph of Rubongoya onto my. So there's the issue of President Semakade's language. And I have seen in the law fraternity, there are many lawyers that are not offended by his language. And it seems that many lawyers are supporting his crusade.
Supporting the language or the crusade?
The crusade, not the language. So there are those who are disturbed by the language. And then there are those who say, because we support the crusade, we don't mind the language.
The language is just a detail.
It is the way it means to an end.
You are a teacher of law and also an activist. So how would you advise him?
Well, I'll say that I wouldn't use that language.
Yeah.
But before you come in, I want to ask Oscar, then you will guide us. What did he exactly say? Can you repeat it?
He said...
Why are you stammering? You don't normally stammer.
A female anatomy that is not good to voice on a morning show. Yes.
Yeah, so I'll just say that, of course, I support the whole idea of banging the table, the thematic areas of decolonization, demilitarization, and all that. But I wouldn't use that language because, as you can see, that has, in a way, watered down the bigger cause. So people are now focusing on the language instead of focusing on the issues that he was raising. There are certainly many issues with the office of the DPP. We've just been talking about the Chief Justice, or who I like to call the Chief Injustice now in this country. And these are issues that
beginning the language.
Semakade has been talking about. But like I said, the problem is that sometimes when you use that kind of language, it takes away from the message gets lost, and that kind of thing. So, of course, I've seen, several lawyers, and I wouldn't want to say many because I've seen those who condemn the language, others support it. But even those who are saying it is okay, have been saying that, where these bodies, some of them, when there are more critical issues happening in this country. For example, Olivia Lutaya has been in jail for 4 years. The women lawyers of this country have never come up with a statement to say we are condemning the continued detention of this young woman by a military court. So even those who have been raising these questions, I haven't seen many who are saying that, oh, this is proper language. They've been saying, why now? Why are you now speaking out? You, the women lawyers, the past presidents of the Uganda Law Society, people have been saying that this country faces a crisis of the rule of law. And we've not seen your voices on very critical issues, like now the abduction of Dr. Chiza Besigye. We would love to see senior lawyers speaking out, maybe even protesting and taking a more firm stance on these issues. So that's what I can say, that I wouldn't use that. And when you look, for example, where we are now, we're not discussing the content of what he was saying, because he had very valid points against the office of the DPP and all that. But now it's been lost in this whole conversation that has emerged.
Honorable Ssemujju.
The president of Law Society, we thank him. He was invited as a keynote speaker at a symposium on rule of law, which we also used to welcome back our 36 colleagues who were kidnapped from Kisumu. The context of his statement, people need to understand it, and that's the point I think Louis is making. He was quarreling people who are kidnapped from Kisumu and are beaten the way they are beaten, and then you charge them with terrorism. So he said, the other words he used, he said, we have a pumpkin as a DPP that you can sanction these sort of charges. You've been a judge. Was he a judge of High Court or Court of Appeal? But you sanction these sort of charges, and then people are taken to court. That's when he went into the language that now has, and I associate with the submission by Rubongoya. Conveniently, all the senior lawyers now, they are not talking about the Kisumu that he was addressing and the DPP who sanctioned those stupid charges. Oscar, I told you here, they found me in Chireka walking when we were protesting. And the investigating officer had recommended that I should be charged with terrorism just for walking. But the office of the DPP then, and I'm not saying it was better, they say, no, we cannot allow these charges. That's how they reduced the charges to disobeying lawful orders and being a public nuisance. But this lady, a former judge of High Court, they abducted people, and you need to listen to their story. When they were brought into Uganda, the director of ESO met them, served them with a buffet that they feared. He said, people have been torturing and beating us. How can they serve us a buffet? So they didn't eat. But he said, Kenya has, they are the ones who called us. They said, you guys are here. They don't know how you came in. We want to hand you over to police to integrate you with your family. That's what the director of ESO told the Kisumu 36. And these were the issues that Semakade was addressing. That you can't have a DPP sanctioning those sort of charges for people abducted in the way they were abducted. And yes, I don't use the language of Semakade, but I think Rubongoya has really, because why?
Sometimes you are not far away from that language.
No, I don't use it, and I'll tell you later if you wait, Oscar, that the women lawyers, that everybody, they are quarreling over what? Why don't they quarrel? Because one of the girls, the Kisumu girl, when she was speaking at that function, they were driven from Kenya for 14 hours. She said they wanted to ease ourselves. The soldiers refused. We were handcuffed. When eventually they took us to ease ourselves, our knickers were being pulled by male soldiers pulling knickers of women and telling them, you kojoa. And these hopeless women are complaining because of a word that Ssemujju used, not because of the torture that women went through. See that level of hypocrisy. We're here, capital gang. When I had all those women lawyers complaining that government had stopped vagina monologue here, we are here. And I told them we cannot allow. That time I was with the government. But they said, you leave our vaginas, Matembe. They were there not on the radio saying, these vaginas are ours, leave them.
Okay,
they cannot be. I am telling you, I was here. I hope Abdu was here that day.
He was.
They were saying, you leave these things, it is ours, we will screen it. Now why are they complaining? Not that, by the way, I condone the language of Ssemujju, but this hypocrisy, a woman cries. That lady from Guru was crying that I am a mother, I am someone's wife. I say I want to ease myself. These UPDF soldiers who are holding us, they were the ones pulling our knickers and saying, okay, you now begin urinating. And that doesn't attract a statement from all these women organizations and so on and so forth. Their only statement is because Ssemujju said that. Okay, Ssemujju can continue, because if you choose not to defend the rights of other people, don't choose to defend the right of one person.
Abdu, there are also other women judges that need a letter for them. Chisache Bukirwa, who is the one who has gone into exile fearing for her life.
No, that's a Supreme Court judge. She had some.
She's in exile now.
Yeah, she had some disagreements within her court, together with her colleagues and so on. Then she tendered in an early retirement, which was rejected by the appointing authority on the grounds that disciplinary proceedings had already started with the Judicial Service Commission. But somehow she left the country, and from what we are reading now, she says she's now in exile. But that's a case for another day. You see, our profession, we are professional and we are trained. One of our tools of trade is language. And you need to know when, how, and why you speak so. Words are so important. So important for any lawyer.
Prosecutors and
yes, how you make your case and so on. And before which judge, you must just choose your words deliberately. If you try to imagine that you go before a judge and you speak an activist language, because you've got conservative judges, you've got liberal judges, and so on. So the choice is yours, but sometimes it might be counterproductive. One, the president of Law Society should really be our real president, the middle of what lawyers are. You may choose to be an activist, but then you'll alienate a certain section of lawyers who much as they believe in the cause, they don't handle it that way. Because you see, it is true that there are so many injustices going on. And when you need to talk to a person like Professor Ssemujju, what is it that he has not done to condemn injustice in this country? But he has a way of doing it. When he was president of Law Society, he used to do it. As a professor of law, he has done it. Actually, he's the first person I know of who wrote a minority report of the commission he was chairing. You mean that level of principleness? I mean, it is not heard of. So if you are to bunch him and say these guys are useless, they don't know what they are doing, I think that is unfair. We know very well that they are past presidents. They have come in, but there is a way they have expressed disagreement. But the country is caught up between two schools of thought, Oscar. We have people who have chosen activism because they think that is a way of handling it. And that's the path they have chosen. Others don't agree with the path they have chosen much as they think that what they are protesting against, certainly also don't agree with it, but they choose to handle it differently. So you need to appreciate them, that, well, this one said this one said this. But if you are President Law Society, you need to know that you are a leader of all of us. Those who believe in
I would do. when we are discussing Ssemakadan elections, you remember what we said?
Yes.
We spoke about the same papers, the winners and everybody, and we said it's going to be different because he was actually different.
Absolutely. And to me, first of all, I am not surprised that he said it. I am not. Yeah. Because I knew he would say it. And I told people that you people brace yourself. You've taken this decision, brace yourself. It is coming.
The storm.
Let me tell you, it is
Early days.
It is early days. It is early days. It is early days. So we need to know that is the president we have. The president we have. Some of us really think a president should be different, really different. The cause could be right, as Ssemujju and Ibrahim say, but it is also lost out in that sort of, I don't even want to call activism, but you know, I want
it's abrasive. Let's go to another lawyer, Lydia here.
That's the first comment.
Oscar, first of all, the Uganda Law Society is a statutory institution, and therefore it is governed by the laws of Uganda. But there is also the profession that is governed by certain rules of decorum, culture, and values. But there are also other areas that are cross-cutting. On our statutory books, if somebody feels that you've gone personal, they can sue for defamation. There is libel. So I supported Ssemakadan. I said it here, and that's why we talk about being on record and speaking, because also language, like Honorable Katutra said, is a very serious tool of the law, because they say be on record, they express, so, and within, certain tenets of language and discourse. So I came on this capital gang and said I support Ssemakadan, but I gave a history that Ssemakadan, I'm paying back. I was paying back because he stood with me. I had a matter that was of concern interpretation within the treaty, and we went a long length and I could see he was unwavering. That's why I said, no, this is the right leader I need. In times of hard or good is there. So I supported him and I campaigned for him. But I want to disassociate myself with the language he's using as our president, as the president of the Law Society. Because what he said about the DPP, I actually take exception, let me be firm on record, that you cannot use tribal discourse. This Karamoja talk of our DPP is not acceptable. I don't take it. Because if DPP has issues, it's not because she's a Karamajong. Keep quiet.
Taken out of context.
No,
he actually said
that's your context.
He said when you attack her, they will say she's a Karamojong.
Do not mention people's tribes, because it's even in our law books. You do not. It is to him. Now he's sick. Until he gets better and comes to say the context, let's speak. So for me, what I've heard, I take exception on tribalizing Justice Abodo, because we do not do that in Uganda.
Okay.
She's there in her own right and unmade. Secondly, you do not sexualize her personality in her office. She's there not because she's a woman, because she has a vagina. No. It's because she's there in her own right as a Ugandan professional lawyer on merit. So when we are taking exception, let's say that that what we don't want and what we think is wrong, even she has a right, by the way, to sue. But I want to recognize and appreciate her for remaining calm and for maintaining the decorum of her office.
No,
because
I have
yes, but I think if it was somebody else. But I also want to wish Council President Ssemakadan a quick recovery, so that maybe he could also come to Gang and speak for himself. But for now, I take exception. I take exception.
Will we manage on
quick recovery? Sema, come and tell us.
Derek Wandera, full supporter.
Come and repeat what he said.
No. We final word is Derek Wandera, full supporter of President Ssemujju, just that he doesn't have voting rights.
I don't have voting rights, and yes, like everyone has said, word power is very important in every system. But I want to.
A listener here said, "At Ssemujju is really having a hard time today."
I want.
It's true.
I want to say something that Honorable Katuntu has already said. I am very worried if people are surprised with this kind of approach of Honorable Council Ssemujju. When Ssemujju was coming in his own campaign, he said, "I am going to do things that many people are going to feel very uncomfortable with," and say his language, his approach, his body demeanor, his dress code, everything is just very different and unique, banging tables. There is something that I was trying to allude to in my mind when the Honorable Kyagulanyi was coming onto the political scene, and he said, "Mine is politics unusual. I'm going to do it Robert Dobbs style." So he goes, he petitions court for being rigged in an election, and in the same minute he petitions is the same minute he withdraws the petition, and people go on air and begin saying, "But what is this? Which candidate does that?" And he says, "This is what I have promised you, that it's going to be politics unusual, Robert Dobbs style." And it is what Ssemujju prepared us for.
When
it is exactly what
Rubongoya writes a letter withdrawing LOP.
You get.
There's no power to do that.
Exactly, this is what Ssemujju prepared us.
You can celebrate that, but there is a price to it, because he can be sued.
If he can be sued,
is it right or is it not right?
Exactly.
It's not about even being sued.
It's and the point I'm speaking to is that I'm surprised that people are surprised.
So in short,
and for me,
they are minimums.
In short, Derek, you are saying minimums. Let him continue. You are with Ssemujju, Rubongoya.
I feel.
Language, no, but bang the table, continue.
But in this country, one thing I wanted to say: in this country, there is more actions of vulgarism in this country than words. So if people are free to act in a vulgar way, and we feel that people who speak in a vulgar way are more dangerous, then who is more dangerous? The ones who act vulgar or the ones who speak?
People, because there are people.
What do you write? What do you write it?
I don't, and I said when I was starting,
why don't you write it?
That word power. I said word power is important in delivering service. You get.
Like you
get word power is important. Yes, and I have said word power is important.
And for me,
I have written stories. I have written stories
very quickly now,
of some supporters of NUP who have been abducted, and they have said that they have been raped in those places. You get. So is it okay for people to act in a vulgar way, or is it okay for people to speak?
Which one is it? Which is the point we are making, actually, that the women lawyers and all these people who are all of a sudden coming up should actually speak out. We should hear them speaking out. But I wanted to relate that to what is going on with the TikTokers who are being picked up every other day. And the other day one was sentenced to in prison to 2 years and 8 months, I think. There was one 6 years and all that. And yet you see that there are so many TikTokers on the regime payroll who are busy attacking the opposition in this country, and the security apparatus does not care about them. But if you come and one is insulting, quote unquote, General Museveni, the first family, then CID goes, picks you up, tortures you, does whatever. So these double standards must be condemned. Because if you see these TikTokers, you just go on TikTok and see how many come and abuse Honorable Kyagulanyi, call him names, go for his family and all that, and other leaders, of course, on this other side. But you'll not see police go after them. So what are they enforcing? Are they enforcing morals? Are they enforcing the law? What are they doing?
Is there anybody who is more
Oscar,
abused
just
in
give
this
me a
country than
second.
more
Just a
than
second.
President Museveni?
I
But that's what I'm
wanted Louis.
Absolutely,
Louis, listen. The reason why we are discussing this matter, if Council Semakade was saying these things with the Ssemujju at, is it PFF or whatever, when he was not a president of the Law Society. But now he's a president of the Law Society.
Okay.
That's why he
you
must
made
change.
it clear.
There's
Ssemujju, you
a
wanted half a minute?
difference. You cannot be a leader and you do those things.
You wanted half a minute now. We've already taken an extra minute.
I can let it go. So
Yeah.
for me, I want to pursue these women lawyers, these high-class judges like Professor, because I respect Professor Sempewa. And I said, you remember, that for me, I thought that law society presidents will be people of that caliber. I am not a lawyer. So the lawyers said, no, that caliber, that chapter has ended. You brought Semakade, and me, I'm very happy for one thing. In the past, you will not invite a president of law society to come at PFF, and he will come. But you invite now the current president, and I am very happy. Semakade, thank you very much for coming. So this is the language for me. Yes, I have a problem with it, but I want to deal with bigger problems of human rights violation, not people just saying vulgar.
Okay, thank you so much.
Nobody is denying deeper problems. We are deep.
For powering the gang. Thank you, Honorable Katuntu, Honorable Anyoto, Honorable Ssemujju, Louis Wongoya of NUP, journalist Derek Wandera. Thank you. Continue following us on our social media platforms. I am Oscar Nsemujju, and I shall see you next week.